So this is the cover that Amalia Mesa-Bains created for the book. And it is a digital print and then a landscape that she created using the materials that are used to create landscapes in model railroads. So repurposing those into a really beautiful landscape in which these two figures are standing.
It originally was part of a larger project with Fowler Museum at UCLA, which has a lot of artifacts from around the world. And I wanted to do something that had an aspect of Mesoamerican life. So I wanted to pick a foundational couple because it was in a larger cabinet of curiosities. So it had to be like a witness to history. And I wanted a couple, like a mother and a father of the Mesoamerican world. Right before we were to do the work, I found this pair, and they came from Jalisco, which is where my grandfather was. So I felt like it was a sort of sign that this is the piece I should use. And Fowler let me, well, they photographed it for me so they would have the image they wanted. And then they let me integrate it into a print. And that was my way of sort of redeeming the collection, because we know that these things were collected in a colonial period where there was a lot of theft and bribery. And so these were all burial pieces, which means they've been dug up, which is even worse. So my attempt to create the layers for it was an attempt to sort of bring it home again. So I started out with a landscape from Jalisco. Then we found an image of one of the major digs near to where they were found. And then I used botanical images that were created in the early colonial period, and then codices that had the figures of people walking along a river. And I superimpose them in layers in a digital process so that I could bring the mother and father home again. And that's really, they're called los antepasados, or my ancestors. That's how it works. My grandfather, Rafael Mesa, was killed during the revolution. And so I didn't really know very much about him. So this was a little homage to my grandmother's family. Yeah.
She's created the digital print. It's a collage print, and then developed this material, which we put in a frame, and the frame is going to be adhered to another strong piece of binding board and attached to the additional 12 feet of the book. And this frame will stand very nicely, and the book will stand up beautifully. Amalia was the one, when we first started and met with her, talking about this collaborative effort to talk about the landscape of the Central Coast perhaps being the glue between the various artists, between the four artists, everyone growing up out of this same landscape, working here on the coast with the ocean and the hills and the trees and then their personal family history. So it was really lovely that when she finally, when we lit on what was going to be possible for the cover. So this turned out to be the perfect combination of the three-dimensional landscape and the images. And the colors are very, very rich, and they work really well with the rest of the colors in the book. And clearly these are ancestors here. So Amalia, her work is not in mural painting, but in creating altars or installations of altars. And the altar goes back through the Chicano art movement to that roots in Catholicism, but also repurposing, rethinking, reappropriating those roots, and developing a altered altar. She has really loved this idea, and I think she has another book project already in mind for a shadow box cover.